The surveillance logs from my own home server told me everything I needed to know. Elena had been deleting her text history every night at 11 p.m. for the past 7 months. Derek's car had been in our driveway 43 times when I was supposedly away on business trips. I sat in my home office at 4:17 a.m., the glow of 3 monitors painting my face in shades of blue, staring at patterns I'd spent 15 years of my career teaching others to recognize. Network intrusion, unauthorized access, data exfiltration. Except this time, the compromised system was my life and the threat actors were sleeping 20 feet away in my bedroom. My name is Adrian Voss and I'm a systems architect specializing in financial data infrastructure. I build the invisible frameworks that keep banks secure, that protect trading algorithms worth billions, that ensure every digital transaction flows exactly where it's supposed to go and nowhere else. I'm paid obscene amounts of money to be paranoid, to think like a criminal, to imagine every possible way a system could be violated. I just never imagined I'd have to use those skills on my own marriage. The coffee had gone cold in my hand hours ago. I'd been reviewing the logs since midnight, cross-referencing timestamps, building a timeline that made my chest feel like someone had reached inside and started squeezing. The data didn't lie, it never did. That's what I loved about it, what had always made me feel safe in a world of human chaos and deception. Numbers were honest, and these numbers were telling me that my wife of 6 years and my best friend since college had been fucking in my house every time I traveled for work. I should explain how I got here, how a man who built his entire professional identity on detecting anomalies and preventing breaches could miss the most obvious intrusion of all. But that's the thing about trust, isn't it? It's the ultimate backdoor, the vulnerability you intentionally leave open because closing it would mean living in a prison of your own making. Derek Hollis had that backdoor access to my life for 17 years. We met during orientation week at Carnegie Mellon, 2 terrified freshmen pretending we knew what the hell we were doing. I was from a nothing town in Ohio, first in my family to go to college, wearing a polo shirt my mother had bought specifically for making a good impression. Derek was from Seattle money, comfortable in his own skin in a way I'd never experienced, laughing easily with strangers like the world was designed to accommodate him. Which, honestly, it kind of was. "You look like you're about to throw up," were his first words to me, outside the computer science building on that sweltering August afternoon. I probably did. I was holding my schedule like it was a map to a minefield, trying to figure out where the hell I was supposed to be. "Just nervous," I admitted, because I was too overwhelmed to perform confidence. "Dude, everyone here is nervous. They're just better at hiding it." He grinned and stuck out his hand. "Derek Hollis, I'm also terrified, if that helps." It did help, more than he could have known. We ended up in the same data structures class, and then the same study group, and then staying up until 3 a.m. in his dorm room debugging code and arguing about whether computer security or software development was the future. He insisted on software, building new things, creating, innovating. I was drawn to security, protecting what already existed, finding the flaws, thinking like the enemy. "You're a pessimist," he'd say, throwing empty Red Bull cans at me across his room. "I'm a realist," I'd counter. "Someone has to protect what people like you build." People like me? Optimists, dreamers, people who think the world is fundamentally good. He laughed at that, a sound that would become as familiar to me as my own voice. "And you think the world is fundamentally bad?" "I think the world is fundamentally vulnerable. Looking back now, I want to reach through time and shake that 20-year-old version of myself. Tell him he's right, that everything is vulnerable, that trust is just another attack vector waiting to be exploited. But I also know he wouldn't listen. None of us do when we're young and desperate for connection. Derek became my best friend by increments. Study sessions turned into meals together, meals turned into weekends. By sophomore year, we had an apartment together off campus, a shitty two-bedroom with temperamental heating, and a landlord who only responded to emergencies if you threatened legal action. Derek always handled the landlord. He was good at that kind of thing, charming his way through conflicts I would have escalated into small wars. "You're too intense, man," he'd tell me after I'd spent an hour composing an email to our landlord about the broken dishwasher. "Just call him, be friendly, it's not a battle." But to me, everything felt like a battle. Maybe that should have been a warning sign about who I'd become, or maybe it was just who I'd always been, and Derek's easygoing nature was the illusion that let me pretend I could be different. We graduated together, both with job offers before the ceremony. Derek went to a startup in San Francisco building social analytics tools. I joined a cybersecurity firm in New York analyzing network vulnerabilities for Fortune 500 companies. We kept in touch religiously, calls every week, visits every few months, that particular kind of friendship that survives distance because the foundation is solid. Or so I thought. 3 years after graduation, Derek's startup folded. Not dramatically, it just ran out of runway, a victim of poor timing and a crowded market. He ended up back east working for a consulting firm in Boston. By then, I'd moved to a position in Princeton, designing security architecture for financial institutions. When he called and asked if I knew anywhere he could crash while he looked for a place, I didn't hesitate. "Stay with me," I said, "as long as you need." He stayed for 4 months. It was like college again, except we had money and real careers and slightly nicer furniture. We'd work during the day, grab dinner together, play video games until midnight. On weekends, we'd drive into the city, hit up bars, pretend we were still 22 instead of pushing 30. That's where I met Elena. Elena Martinez was a data journalist for Bloomberg, which meant she actually understood what I did for a living. That alone made her stand out. I'd gone on enough first dates where I watched eyes glaze over when I tried to explain network topology or encryption protocols, but Elena leaned forward, asked questions, challenged my assumptions about data, privacy, and surveillance. "So you're basically building walls," she said on our second date, over Vietnamese food in a cramped restaurant in the East Village. "I'm building smart walls," I corrected, "ones that recognize threats and adapt, but still walls, still fundamentally about restriction and control. Also fundamentally about protection and safety." She smiled. "Fair point. I suppose I'm used to thinking about data as something that should be free and accessible, but I also don't want my bank account emptied by some kid in Romania." Exactly. That's the tension. Openness versus security, access versus protection. And you live on the protection side. Someone has to. Derek loved her immediately. The three of us fell into an easy rhythm. Friday dinners together, summer weekends at Derek's family place on Cape Cod, holiday parties where Eleanor would charm Derek's colleagues while I talked shop with other security people. She fit perfectly into our lives, like she'd always been meant to be there. "You're going to marry her?" Derek told me 6 months in, drunk on his couch after Elena had gone home. "Maybe," I said, trying to play it cool. "Definitely, I've never seen you like this." "Like what?" "Happy, relaxed, less like you're waiting for the world to attack you." He was right. Elena softened something in me I didn't know was hard, made me laugh more easily, convinced me to take vacations without checking work email every 30 minutes, taught me that vulnerability wasn't the same as weakness. I proposed on the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset because I'm apparently that kind of cliché when it comes to romance. She said yes before I even finished the question, and Derek was the first person we called afterward. "About fucking time," he said, and I could hear the genuine joy in his voice. "I'm best man, right? That's not even a question. I'm the best man, obviously." I'm going to give the greatest speech in wedding toast history. Please don't embarrass me. I'm going to embarrass you so hard. It's my sacred duty." He did give a great speech, actually. Funny and heartfelt and just the right amount of roasting. He talked about meeting me freshman year, how I'd been this intense, suspicious kid who treated every social interaction like a potential security breach, how he'd watched me slowly learn to trust, to open up, to build a life that wasn't just about protecting systems, but about connecting with people. And then Elena came along and finished what I started, he said, raising his glass. She cracked the vault, ladies and gentlemen. She got inside Adrian Voss's defenses and found out what I've known all along. He's actually a huge softie who cries at Pixar movies and writes terrible poetry when he thinks no one's looking. Everyone laughed. Elena squeezed my hand under the table. I felt my face burning, but also felt something close to perfect happiness. To Adrian and Elena, Derek concluded, two people who absolutely deserve each other and who I absolutely don't deserve as friends. I love you both. I remember watching him sit down, his eyes slightly wet, and thinking, this is what family looks like. Not the one you're born into, but the one you build. Derek wasn't just my best friend. He was my brother in every way that mattered. That memory feels like poison now. Eleanor and I bought a house in Princeton 18 months after the wedding. Nothing extravagant. A 3-bedroom colonial with a decent yard, garage space for her bike and my workshop, a home office where I could work remotely when I needed to. Derek helped us move, spent a week helping me set up my home network infrastructure because he knew I'd obsess over every detail. You're running enterprise-grade equipment in a residential house, he said, watching me configure the firewall. We have valuable data, Elena's research, my client files. I'm not taking chances. You're insane. I'm thorough, he grinned. Same thing with you. I installed cameras too, exterior ones for security, which Elena thought was overkill but accepted. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that I'd also set up interior network monitoring. Not cameras, nothing invasive like that, but traffic analysis. I could see what devices were on our network, what they were accessing, when they were active. It wasn't about spying, it was just, I couldn't help myself. Creating secure systems was what I did. Our home network was my masterpiece, my laboratory. I told myself it was professional development, that I was testing configurations I might deploy for clients. The truth was simpler. I was addicted to control, to knowing exactly what was happening in my environment, to eliminating uncertainty. I never imagined that addiction would one day show me the precise moment my life turned to ash. Derek visited often. Every few weeks he'd drive down from Boston for the weekend, crash in our guest room, join us for dinners and weekend projects. Elena loved having him around. She'd laugh at his stories from the consulting circuit, tease him about his revolving door of casual relationships, try to set him up with her single friends. You need to settle down, she'd say. I'm allergic to commitment, he'd respond. Besides, why would I, when I can just visit you two and pretend I have a functioning adult life? You do have a functioning adult life, I'd point out. Debatable. I live in a studio apartment and eat cereal for dinner 3 times a week. By choice, you make twice what I make. Money doesn't equal adulthood, Adrian. You, of all people, should know that. What's that supposed to mean? You were eating ramen and wearing the same jeans for 2 weeks straight until Elena forced you to upgrade your wardrobe. Elena laughed. That's absolutely true. I literally threw out half his closet. I had a system, I protested. Your system was depression chic, Derek said. We upgraded you to functioning human being. These conversations felt easy, natural, the kind of comfort you only get with people who know you completely. Derek was family. More than that, he was the witness to my entire adult life, The person who'd seen me evolve from that anxious freshman to a man with a career, a wife, a home. The person I trusted absolutely. Year 4 of my marriage, I started traveling more. My firm had landed several major contracts with international banks, and someone needed to be on site for the infrastructure implementations. Tokyo, London, Frankfurt, Singapore, 2 weeks at a time, sometimes 3. Elena hated it, I hated it, but the money was incredible, and I told myself it was temporary. We were saving for the future, maybe kids eventually, a bigger house, the kind of financial security I'd never had growing up. "I'll be fine," Eleanor said the night before my first trip to London. "It's only 2 weeks. Call me every day. Adrian, you're going to be in meetings constantly. I'm not going to bother you every single day." "You're never a bother." She kissed me. "I know, but I'm a grown woman. I can handle 2 weeks." "Alone?" "Derek said he might come down this weekend if you want company." "That'd be nice. We can watch that documentary about financial fraud he keeps talking about." I left my house key with Derek. He'd had one for years anyway. "Check in on her? Make sure she's okay?" "Dude, she's going to be fine, but yeah, of course." That's how it started, I think. The opportunity, the access, the slow corruption of something that had been pure. Or maybe it had never been pure. Maybe I just couldn't see the rot until it was too late. The first trip went fine. Elena and I talked every couple of days, sent texts, shared photos. She seemed happy, busy with work, handling my absence like an adult. I felt ridiculous for worrying. The second trip to Singapore was longer, 3 weeks. Elena's messages became slightly less frequent, which I rationalized as both of us falling into our separate routines. When I got home, she seemed distracted. Not cold exactly, but not quite present. "Everything okay?" I asked on my second night back. "Of course, why?" "You seem distant?" "I'm just tired. Work's been intense." "Anything you want to talk about?" "It's boring stuff. Ad targeting algorithms, data ethics, nothing you'd find interesting." That stung a little. I'd always been interested in her work, but I let it go. Marriage meant sometimes giving each other space, right? The third trip was Frankfurt. 2 weeks. When I called Elena from my hotel room the first night, Derek answered her phone. "Hey man," he said casually. "Elena's in the bathroom. We're watching a movie." "Oh, cool. Which one?" "That new thriller, the one about the whistleblower. It's pretty good." "Nice. She's been wanting to see that." Elena took the phone a minute later, sounded normal, chatted about her day. I hung up feeling fine. Derek was keeping her company. That's what friends did. Except there was something in the casualness of it that pinged something in my security-trained brain. The way he'd answered her phone so comfortably, like he did it often, like it was natural. I pushed the thought away. This was Derek, my best friend, the guy who'd been best man at my wedding. The idea that there could be anything inappropriate was absurd, paranoid. But the thought, once planted, was hard to kill. I started paying more attention, not consciously at first, but in that peripheral way where your brain is processing patterns you're not ready to acknowledge. Elena's phone was always face down now. She'd step out to take calls. She was showering more in the evenings instead of mornings. Small things, insignificant things, except I knew better. In security, small anomalies are how you catch major breaches, the little irregularities that don't make sense until you string them together. During my fourth trip, Tokyo, 3 weeks, I did something I'm not proud of. I logged into our home network remotely and started actually monitoring the traffic. Not just the security logs, but the actual activity. Who was connected when, what devices were active, what services they were accessing. Elena's phone showed normal patterns for the first few days. Then Derek's car appeared in our driveway. I knew because his phone MAC address showed up on the network. He stayed for dinner, apparently. His device disconnected around 10 p.m. 2 days later, he was back. Same pattern. Arrived around 7 p.m., left around 10 p.m. This was fine. This was normal. Derek visiting to keep Elena company while I was traveling. Completely reasonable. Except on the third visit, his device didn't disconnect at 10 p.m. It stayed active on the network until 6 a.m. the next morning. My hands were shaking when I saw that log entry. I stared at it for 10 minutes, trying to find alternative explanations. Maybe he'd crashed on the couch, too much to drink, didn't want to drive, completely innocent. But Elena hadn't mentioned it when we talked that morning. Hadn't said, "Oh, Derek stayed over last night." It just hadn't come up. I checked the previous week's logs, found 4 more instances of Derek's device being active overnight, all during my previous trips, all unmentioned. I felt sick. I wanted to call her immediately, demand an explanation, but I also knew how insane that would sound. "Hi, honey. I've been monitoring our home network traffic from Tokyo, and I noticed Derek's phone has been connected overnight several times." I'd sound like a psychopath, a controlling, paranoid husband who spied on his wife. Which technically I was. I decided to wait, gather more information. Maybe there was an innocent explanation I wasn't seeing. Maybe I was reading malice into what was just friendship, convenience. But I also upgraded my monitoring, set up automated alerts for when Derek's device connected to our network, started tracking Elena's phone more closely, not reading her messages, I wasn't there yet, but watching patterns. When she was deleting texts, when she was making calls, who she was calling. The data accumulated slowly, a weight growing in my chest. Derek visited 7 times during that 3-week trip. His device stayed overnight 4 times. Elena deleted her text message history every night at 11 p.m. like clockwork, a pattern that hadn't existed before my international travel started. I came home from Tokyo with a smile on my face and murder in my heart. "Welcome home," Elena said, kissing me at the door. She seemed genuinely happy to see me, affectionate, normal. I hugged her tight, breathed in her shampoo, felt her warmth against me, and wondered if I was losing my mind. "How was the trip?" "Exhausting. Successful, but exhausting." "I missed you." "I missed you too." We ordered Thai food, watched Netflix, went to bed early. She initiated sex, which should have felt good, but instead felt like evidence of something I couldn't quite name. Was she overcompensating, covering guilt? Or was I just so poisoned by suspicion that I couldn't accept affection at face value anymore? I waited 3 days before mentioning Derek. "Has Derek been around much?" Elena was chopping vegetables for dinner. She didn't pause, didn't tense. "A few times. He came down to check on me while you were gone." "That's nice of him." "Yeah. We watched some movies, ordered food. It was good to have the company." "He stay late?" Now she paused, just for half a second. "Sometimes. A couple times he crashed on the couch because he'd been drinking." "Makes sense," she resumed chopping. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious. I'm glad you had someone around." "Are you jealous?" She was smiling, teasing. "Of Derek? No." "Good, because that would be ridiculous. Totally ridiculous." But my hand was shaking when I reached for my beer, because she'd lied. Not a big lie, not a dramatic one, but a lie nonetheless. A couple times was not the same as 4 times, and she'd volunteered the couch. Detail without me asking, which meant she'd prepared that explanation. I spent that night lying awake while Elena slept beside me, her breathing steady and peaceful, and I felt like I was drowning. The next trip was scheduled for a month out. London, again, 2 weeks. I had a month to either confirm my paranoia or prove myself wrong. I chose confirmation. I told myself it was about certainty, about needing to know the truth before I accused anyone of anything. But really, I think some part of me was hoping I'd find evidence that would exonerate them both. That would prove I'd been reading patterns into randomness, seeing threats where none existed. I was very good at my job. I knew how to monitor systems without being detected. I knew what digital footprints people left behind, what could be recovered even after deletion. I knew that everyone, no matter how careful, left traces. I started with Elena's laptop. She left it on the kitchen counter one evening while she showered. I had maybe 15 minutes. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she'd hear it from upstairs. I felt like I was violating something sacred, crossing a line I couldn't uncross, but I did it anyway. I created a backup image of her hard drive using a bootable USB I'd prepared. The whole process took 12 minutes. When I heard the shower turn off, I shut down the laptop, replaced it exactly where it had been, and went to the living room with a book, trying to look casual. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night, after Elena fell asleep, I went to my home office and loaded her backup onto an isolated system. Started analyzing file access times, deleted items, browser history, application logs. She'd been thorough about deleting messages, but deletion isn't erasure. Not really, not if you know where to look. I found fragments in the file system, recovered chunks of data, pieced together conversations like a jigsaw puzzle. The first message fragment I found was from 3 months ago. Can't keep doing this. Adrian suspects something. Derek's response. He doesn't know anything. He's paranoid by nature. It's fine. Elena. It doesn't feel fine. I feel sick every time I lie to him. Derek. Then stop lying. We can tell him. Elena. Are you insane? That would destroy him and us. Derek. So what do you want to do? Elena. I don't know. I miss you. Is that horrible? Derek. Oh no, I miss you too. I sat there staring at the screen, reading and rereading those words until they stopped making sense. Then I leaned over my trash can and threw up. When I could breathe again, I kept digging. More fragments, pieces of a story I hadn't wanted to believe. Tonight, Adrian's in Singapore for another week. I'll bring wine, the good stuff. You're terrible for my self-control. You're not exactly innocent here, Martinez. Don't make me think about what we're doing. What are we doing? Something we can never take back. There were photos too, not explicit ones. They'd been smarter than that. But pictures of them together during my trips. Derek in our kitchen. Elena wearing one of Derek's hoodies. A selfie of them on our couch, her head on his shoulder, both of them laughing. Little moments of intimacy I'd never been part of. A relationship running parallel to my marriage, invisible but real. I found evidence of hotel rooms, receipts deleted from Elena's email, but recoverable from her laptop's cached files. The Marriott in Boston twice, a bed and breakfast in Vermont, dates that corresponded with weekends when Elena had told me she was visiting her sister in New York. The data painted a picture. They'd started sleeping together about 8 months ago, right around the time my international travel had increased. It hadn't been a one-time mistake, a moment of weakness. It had been ongoing, deliberate, systematic, a betrayal engineered through opportunity and lies. I spent 4 hours that night documenting everything, creating a timeline, building a case like I was preparing a security audit report, evidence collection and chain of custody, screenshots and recovered files, and metadata. When I was done, I had a 47-page document that proved beyond any reasonable doubt that my wife and my best friend had been having an affair. I saved it to an encrypted drive and went upstairs to bed. Elena was still sleeping, curled on her side, her face peaceful, beautiful. I stood in the doorway and looked at her and felt absolutely nothing. That scared me more than the rage or the pain, the complete absence of feeling, like something fundamental had shut down inside me to avoid catastrophic system failure. I climbed into bed next to her and stared at the ceiling until dawn. I didn't confront them, not yet. Part of it was strategy. I needed time to think, to plan, but mostly it was cowardice. Once I said something, once I made it real, through acknowledgement, everything would change. The marriage would end. The friendship would die. My entire life would fracture. As long as I stayed silent, I could pretend, keep going through the motions, maintain the illusion. I became someone else during those weeks. I'd smile at Eleanor over breakfast, ask about her day, make love to her at night while thinking about Derek's hands on her body. I'd talk to Derek on the phone, listen to him complain about work, offer advice like we were still brothers. The performance was exhausting, but I was good at it. I'd spent my whole career building facades, creating systems that looked one way on the surface while functioning completely differently underneath. This was just another architecture project, maintain the external interface while redesigning the core. I moved money quietly. Not much. I didn't want to trigger alerts, but I set up new accounts Elena didn't know about, documented our assets, our debts, prepared for the legal battles that would come. I also started gathering information on Derek, his work, his clients, his vulnerabilities. I told myself it was just reconnaissance, but I knew what I was really doing. I was building weapons. The London trip approached. I didn't cancel it, even though the thought of leaving Elena alone for 2 weeks made me want to drive my car into a wall. But cancelling would raise questions, would disturb the pattern, and I needed the pattern to continue, needed them to feel safe, to think they'd gotten away with it. 2 days before I was supposed to leave, Derek called. "Hey, you around this weekend? Thought I'd come down, hang out before you leave for London." "Sure," I said, my voice steady. "Elena would love to see you." "Cool, I'll bring that scotch I've been saving." "Perfect." We had dinner together Friday night, the three of us around our dining table, eating the pasta Elena had made, drinking Derek's expensive scotch. They weren't obvious about it, no meaningful glances, no inappropriate touching. But I could see it now. The familiarity between them. The way Derek's eyes lingered on Elena a fraction too long. The way she laughed at his jokes with more warmth than they deserved. "This is nice," Derek said, raising his glass. "The three of us, like old times." "Except Adrian's about to abandon us again," Elena said, nudging me. "Only for 2 weeks, then I'm back." 2 weeks is a long time," Derek said quietly. "Not that long," Elena replied, but she was looking at Derek when she said it. I excused myself to the bathroom and gripped the sink until my knuckles went white. Breathed slowly. Reminded myself that violence wouldn't solve anything, that I needed to be smart, to be patient. When I came back, they were laughing about something. They went quiet when I entered, which meant they'd been talking about me. "What's funny?" I asked. "Nothing," Elena said. "Just Derek telling an embarrassing story from college." "Which one?" "The time you got drunk and tried to explain quantum encryption to a bartender for 45 minutes. That's not embarrassing, that's educational." "It's embarrassing," Derek confirmed. "The bartender literally paid us to leave." We all laughed. It sounded hollow to my ears, but they didn't seem to notice. Derek stayed until midnight. When he left, Elena seemed disappointed. She went to bed without saying much, and I knew she was probably texting him, making plans for while I was gone. I went to my office and pulled up the surveillance logs, set the automated alerts to send me real-time notifications, prepared myself for 2 weeks of watching my life disintegrate from across an ocean. London was grey and wet, which matched my mental state. I checked into my hotel, sent Elena a text that I'd arrived safely, and spent my first evening watching the network activity from home. Derek showed up on day 2, his car in the driveway at 7 p.m., his device connecting to the home network. Normal dinner visit timing. Except his device stayed active until 7 a.m. the next morning. I was sitting in a conference room in Canary Wharf when I got the alert. Had to excuse myself to the bathroom so no one would see my face. I locked myself in a stall and clenched my fists so hard my nails drew blood. They were in my bed right now, together. While I was presenting security protocols to bankers who couldn't possibly care less, I wanted to call, to scream at both of them, to book the next flight home and burn everything to the ground. Instead, I went back to the conference room and gave my presentation, answered questions about firewall configurations and intrusion detection with perfect professional composure. That night I called Elena. She answered after 3 rings, sounding slightly breathless. "Hey, honey." "Hey, how's it going there?" "Good, busy. The implementation is more complicated than expected." "That sucks. You okay?" "Just tired, missing you." "Miss you too." In the background I heard something. A voice, male, quiet, but there. "Is someone there?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. "Oh, I have the TV on. It's a movie." "Which one?" That thriller about the journalist. Can't remember the name." "Sounds good. I'll let you go. Love you." "Love you too." I hung up and immediately checked the logs. Derek's device was still connected. Had been for the past 6 hours. She was lying. While he was physically there, in our house, probably in our bedroom, she was lying to my face. I opened my laptop and started working. Not on client projects, on something else, something I'd been planning in the back of my mind but hadn't fully committed to yet. I was going to destroy them both, methodically, completely, in a way they'd never recover from, but I needed to be smart, needed to make sure I had every piece of leverage, every scrap of evidence, needed to know exactly how to hurt them before I made my move. Derek stayed over 5 times during my 2 weeks in London. Each time I documented it, screenshots, log files, timestamps, built a database of their affair with the same attention to detail I'd use for a major security audit. I also started looking into Derek's professional life more closely. He worked for Brightline Consulting, a mid-sized firm that specialized in enterprise software implementations. I used my industry connections to quietly inquire about his projects, his clients, his reputation. What I found was interesting. Derek had been cutting corners, not criminally, not in ways that would get him immediately fired, but in ways that showed a pattern of prioritizing quick wins over sustainable solutions. Clients who'd initially been happy with his work had started reporting problems 6 months later. Systems that hadn't been properly stress-tested, documentation that was incomplete. He was a good salesman, good at the initial engagement, but his follow-through was weak. He relied on charm to smooth over problems that should have been solved technically. I wondered if Elena had figured that out yet. If she knew she was trading a husband who built things that lasted for a man who built facades that crumbled. Probably not. She was too caught up in the romance of it. The secret meetings, the forbidden thrill. She'd realize eventually that Derek was all surface, no foundation. But by then, it would be too late. I came home from London on a Friday afternoon. Elena picked me up from the airport, seemed genuinely happy to see me. We had sex that night, and I had to close my eyes and dissociate because otherwise I would have asked her how I compared to Derek. Whether my hands felt different on her skin, whether she thought about him when she was with me. The next morning, Derek called. "Welcome back, man. Want to grab lunch tomorrow? Catch up?" "Sure. The usual place?" "Perfect. 1 o'clock?" We met at a sports bar we'd been going to for years, ordered burgers and beer. talked about work, about his latest projects, about my trip. He seemed completely at ease. No guilt, no tells, no indication that he was fucking my wife whenever I left town. "So I've been thinking," he said, halfway through his burger. "What would you think about working together?" "What do you mean?" "Consulting, you and me. We've both got skills, connections, reputation. We could make a lot more money independently than working for other people." "You want to start a business together?" "Why not? We make a good team, always have." I took a sip of beer to buy time. This was unexpected, bold even. He was planning a future that included both me and Elena somehow. Like he could have everything. The best friend and the wife. "That's interesting," I said, carefully. "I'd have to think about it." "Of course, no pressure, just something to consider." "When did you come up with this idea?" "Been rolling around in my head for a while, last few months, mostly." The same months he'd been sleeping with Eleanor. He'd been planning our business partnership while betraying our friendship. The audacity was almost impressive. "I'll think about it," I said. "That's all I'm asking." We finished lunch. He paid, insisted on it. Clapped me on the shoulder when we parted ways. "Good to have you back, brother." "Good to be back." I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, breathing through the rage. He wanted to be partners, to tie our careers together, our finances, our futures, while sleeping with my wife, while lying to my face, while destroying everything we'd built. The sheer fucking hubris of it crystallized something in me. I'd been thinking about confrontation, about divorce, about extracting myself from this situation with minimal damage. But that wasn't enough anymore. I didn't just want out. I wanted them to suffer, both of them, in ways they'd feel for years. I wanted Derek to lose his career, his reputation, every professional connection he'd built. I wanted him exposed as a fraud, a liar, someone no one would ever trust again. I wanted Elena to lose the life we'd built together, to watch it all collapse because of her choices. I wanted her to understand what she'd thrown away. And I wanted them to turn on each other, to blame each other, to hate each other the way I hated them both. I could do it. I had the skills, the knowledge, the access. I just needed time and patience. I started that night. The plan required layers, multiple points of pressure applied simultaneously so neither of them could stabilize. I divided my strategy into 3 phases: evidence gathering, asset protection, and systematic destruction. Phase 1 was mostly complete. I had documented proof of the affair, but I needed more than just infidelity evidence. I needed professional ammunition against Derek, personal vulnerabilities I could exploit. I started with his work at Brightline Consulting. I created a false identity, a potential client looking for enterprise software consultation, used a burner phone and email address that couldn't be traced to me, reached out to Derek directly, requested a preliminary meeting to discuss a fictional project. He took the bait immediately, set up a meeting for the following week at a coffee shop in Boston. I didn't go myself, obviously. I hired a professional, a former colleague, who owed me a favor and asked no questions, sent him in wired for audio and video. The conversation was enlightening. Derek oversold his capabilities, made promises about timelines and deliverables that weren't realistic, quoted industry standards he clearly didn't understand. My colleague, who actually knew the technical details, led him into several statements that were factually incorrect. More importantly, Derek implied he had access to certain proprietary tools through his firm that he could make available to the right clients, which was, at best, an ethics violation. At worst, IP theft. I documented everything. Next, I looked into Brightline's client roster, found 3 recent projects Derek had led, contacted the clients under another false identity, this time posing as a reference checker for a different consulting firm. Asked careful questions about their experience working with Derek. 2 of the 3 had significant complaints, deliverables that didn't match promises, communication gaps, systems that had needed extensive rework after Derek had moved on to other projects. The 3rd client was currently in mediation with Brightline over a failed implementation, Derek's implementation. I compiled all of this into a report, detailed, sourced, professionally formatted, the kind of report that would destroy a career if it reached the right people. Then I turned my attention to Eleanor. My wife was more complicated. She hadn't committed professional fraud. Her betrayal was purely personal, but she worked in journalism, which meant reputation was everything. Credibility was currency. I started going through her articles, her research, her sources, looking for anything that could be problematic. Conflicts of interest, factual errors, ethical lapses. She was clean, frustratingly so. Elena took her work seriously, maintained strict standards, built stories on solid foundations. But I noticed something else. She'd been working on a major investigative piece for the past year, something about financial fraud in the cryptocurrency sector. It was her biggest project, the kind of reporting that could make a career. She kept all her research files on our home server. I'd set up the system for her years ago, taught her how to back everything up, how to organize her sources. I had complete access to all of it. An idea started forming, dark and perfect. I spent the next month in careful preparation, went through my daily life like everything was normal, kissed Eleanor goodbye each morning, took calls from Derek about potential business partnership details, scheduled another international trip, Singapore 3 weeks. Neither of them suspected anything. During the day, I worked my regular job. At night, after Elena went to sleep, I built my revenge architecture. I created an anonymous blog, professional-looking, credible. Started it several months backdated, filled it with industry commentary and analysis to make it look established, built up a false history of investigative journalism about consulting fraud. Then I drafted a post. A detailed expose about Derek Hollis and his pattern of professional misconduct. I included everything. The false representations to my fake client, the complaints from his real clients, the mediation over the failed project. I framed it as public interest journalism, protecting potential future clients from a consultant who made promises he couldn't keep. I scheduled it to post while I was in Singapore, created an automated tweet chain that would distribute it across relevant industry hashtags, set up an email that would send the post to Derek's colleagues, his firm's leadership, and several of his clients. One click would destroy his professional reputation. But I wasn't ready to click yet. That was only phase 2. Phase 3 was more personal. I carefully accessed Elena's research files, the cryptocurrency fraud investigation, months of her work, interviews with sources who'd trusted her with their stories, financial documents that had taken her months to acquire, analysis and writing that represented the best of her skills. I copied all of it. Then I created another anonymous identity, posted her research to a public forum, made it look like the information had been leaked, like Elena had failed to protect her sources, had allowed sensitive information to be compromised. I didn't post it yet, just prepared it, scheduled it to go live the same day as the Derek expose. When her sources saw their information public, they'd assume Elena had been careless or unethical. Her editors would investigate, find that the files had been accessed from our home server, from her laptop specifically. She'd lose the story, probably her job, definitely her reputation as a journalist who could be trusted with sensitive information. The beauty of it was that she'd never be able to prove she hadn't been the one who leaked it. The access came from her system, her network, her credentials, just like she'd never be able to prove she hadn't been sleeping with my best friend because all the evidence was real. I built phase 3 with steady hands and no hesitation. I set up the divorce paperwork, found a lawyer who was ruthless and expensive, documented every asset we owned, every joint account, every shared investment. New Jersey was an equitable distribution state, which meant everything would be split based on fairness, not automatically 50-50. I had evidence of adultery that would help. I also quietly moved. Money, nothing obvious, nothing Elena would notice. But I shifted assets around, created some liquidity for myself, made sure I'd have resources for the legal battle. I changed my will, removed Elena as beneficiary, named my parents instead, and I started looking for a new place to live, something small, temporary, a rental where I could land after everything exploded, every piece in place, every trigger set. All I needed was the right moment to activate it all. The Singapore trip was scheduled to start on a Monday. I bought the plane ticket, confirmed the hotel, told Elena I'd be gone for 3 weeks. Derek called that weekend. "You around Sunday? Want to grab dinner before you leave?" "Can't. Family thing with Elena's parents?" "Ah, gotcha. Well, have a good trip. I'll check in on Elena while you're gone." "I'm sure you will." He didn't catch the edge in my voice. Why would he? I'd been playing the oblivious husband for months. Sunday night, I sat with Elena in our living room. She was reading, I was pretending to work on my laptop. Actually, I was reviewing my revenge architecture one final time, checking that every automated trigger was set, every file was in place, every timeline was perfect. "You're quiet tonight," Elena said. "Just thinking about the trip. It's a complicated implementation." "You'll do great. You always do. Thanks." She went back to her book. I looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to remember what it felt like to love her, to trust her, to believe we had a future together. I couldn't access those feelings anymore. They'd been overwritten by months of lies and surveillance data, replaced with something cold and precise and completely focused on destruction. "I love you," I said. She looked up, surprised. "I love you too." "No matter what happens, I want you to know that." "Why are you being weird?" "I'm not. Just 3 weeks is a long time. I'll miss you." "I'll miss you too." She set down her book came over to the couch, curled up against me. "But you'll be back before you know it. And then we can start thinking about that vacation we've been talking about. Maybe Greece? You've always wanted to go to Greece." "Maybe." There would be no vacation, no Greece, no future together at all. But she didn't know that yet. I held her while she talked about plans that would never happen, and I felt absolutely nothing. Monday morning, I woke at 5 a.m., got dressed in the dark while Elena slept. My suitcase was already packed. I'd prepared everything the night before. I stood in the bedroom doorway for a long moment, watching her sleep, memorizing it. Not out of nostalgia, but documentation. The last time I'd see her, before everything changed. Then I went to my office, logged into my systems, stared at the carefully prepared destruction I'd architected over the past month. All I had to do was click one button. Activate the sequence, let the automated revenge play out while I was on the other side of the world with perfect deniability. My hand hovered over the mouse. This was the moment. The point of no return. Once I did this, there'd be no pretending, no going back. Both of their lives would implode, the marriage would end, the friendship would die, everything I'd built over the past 17 years would burn. I clicked, the system started executing, scheduled posts going live, emails queuing, documents uploading to public forums, everything timed perfectly, spread across the next 3 weeks while I was supposedly unreachable in Singapore. Phase 1, evidence of Derek's professional fraud goes public. Phase 2, Elena's research gets leaked, destroying her reputation. Phase 3, divorce papers get filed and served, all automated, all traceable to anonymous sources, all completely deniable. I grabbed my suitcase and headed to the airport. Except I wasn't going to Singapore, I was going to a hotel 3 miles from my house where I'd watch everything burn from a safe distance. The hotel was a mid-range business chain near the Princeton Junction train station. Nothing fancy, nothing memorable. I'd paid cash for 2 weeks, used a false name, the kind of place where no one would look twice at a guy working on his laptop in his room. I checked in at 7 a.m., set up my equipment. 3 laptops, multiple monitors, enough processing power to track everything in real time. Then I waited. The Derek expose went live at 9 a.m., posted to the blog, distributed across Twitter, emailed to a carefully curated list of industry people. I watched the engagement metrics climb, people reading, sharing, commenting. By noon, it had been picked up by a professional networking site. Someone had tagged Brightline Consulting's official account. By 2 p.m., Derek called me. I almost didn't answer, but maintaining the illusion required taking the call. "Hey," I said, trying to sound distracted. "What's up? I'm literally boarding my flight."
"Adrian, thank God. Have you seen the internet today?" "No, why? I've been in meetings all morning." "Someone posted this fucking hit piece about me. Complete bullshit, all lies, and it's spreading everywhere." "What? Slow down? What happened?" He explained. Sounded panicked. Said his boss had already called him, that clients were emailing, that his reputation was being destroyed. "Who would do this?" he asked. "Who the fuck would do this?" "I don't know, man. Do you have any enemies?" "No, I mean, sure, maybe some unhappy clients, but this is different. This is coordinated, professional." "What does it say?" He summarized the accusations. I pretended to be shocked, outraged on his behalf. "That's insane. You should get a lawyer. Sue for defamation." "The blog is anonymous. I don't know who to sue." "Can you track the IP address?" "I don't know how to do that. You're the tech guy." "I'm boarding a flight to Singapore, Derek. I can't help you right now." "Fuck." "Okay, I'm sorry. I know your trip is important. I'm freaking out." "It'll be okay. Just stay calm. Talk to your company's legal team. They'll help." "Yeah. Okay, thanks, man." "Call me if you need anything, though I'll be hard to reach for a bit." "I know. Safe flight." I hung up and allowed myself a smile. One target hit. Elena's leak went live at 6 p.m. East Coast time. While Derek was dealing with his professional implosion, Elena's year of investigative work was being scattered across the internet. I monitored the forums, watched her sources start to panic, saw the first angry emails hit her work account, people demanding to know how their information had been compromised. She called me at 8 p.m. I was 6 hours ahead in my fake Singapore timeline, so I let it go to voicemail. She called again 5 minutes later. Then Derek called, then Elena again. I turned off my phone, let them panic together, let them try to figure out what was happening, let them wonder if
the two catastrophes were connected or just horrible coincidence. The next morning, I turned my phone back on to 53 messages and 14 voicemails. Most were from Elena, progressively more frantic. Her sources were threatening legal action. Her editors were investigating. Someone had leaked her work and destroyed months of reporting. Derek's messages were similar. Brightline had put him on administrative leave pending an investigation. Clients were cancelling contracts. His professional reputation was in free fall. Neither of them had connected the attacks to me. Why would they? I was in Singapore, completely removed from whatever was happening. I sent a brief text to Elena. "Just landed. Crazy day of travel. Everything okay?" She called immediately. "Adrian, oh my God, everything is falling apart." "What happened?" She explained about the leak, the sources, the investigation. Sounded genuinely devastated. I almost felt bad. Almost. That's terrible. Do they know how it happened? No. They're saying it came from my laptop, from our home network. But I didn't do it. I would never compromise my sources. "I believe you. There must be another explanation. I don't know what it could be. Adrian, I might lose my job. We'll figure it out when I get back. Just stay calm. Get a lawyer if you need to. Derek's dealing with something similar. Someone attacked him online. Posted all this stuff about his work. That's weird. Is it connected? I don't know. It seems like too much of a coincidence. Maybe you both have an enemy you don't know about. Who would target both of us? I let the question hang there, planted the first seed of doubt. I don't know. Someone who knows you both? Someone who has access to information about both your careers? I can't think of anyone. Me neither. But this seemed coordinated. You think someone's coming after us specifically? I think you should be careful, both of you, until we know what's happening. We talked for another 20 minutes. I offered comfort, support, told her I'd cut the trip short if she needed me to. She said no, that she'd handle it, that I should focus on work. Perfect. Phase 3 would hit in 2 days. The divorce papers served to her at our house. The final piece of evidence that everything had been deliberate, calculated, and personal. Derek called me the next day. Adrian, I think Elena and I are being targeted. What makes you say that? This all happened at the same time, within hours. Someone leaked her research. Someone exposed my work issues. It can't be a coincidence. You think someone's attacking you both specifically? I don't know what else to think. Who would have the technical skills to pull off both attacks? Silence on the line. I could almost hear his brain working. Then, you don't think... No, that's crazy. What? Nothing. Paranoid thought. Tell me. You're literally the only person we both know.
Who could pull off something like this? But that's insane. Why would you? I let my voice go cold. Why would I what, Derek? Nothing. I'm not suggesting, I'm just stressed. Not thinking clearly. You think I'd sabotage my own wife and my best friend while I'm working halfway around the world? No, of course not. I'm sorry. I'm just looking for answers. And there aren't any. Maybe you should look closer to home. Think about who actually has motives to hurt both of you. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm just saying, before you start accusing your friends of conspiracy, maybe examine your own choices. See if there's something you've done that might explain why someone would want to hurt you. Another silence. Longer this time. Adrian, I have to go. Client meeting. Good luck with your investigation. I hung up before he could respond. Let him think about that. Let him wonder if I knew. Let the guilt start eating at him. The divorce papers were
Thursday afternoon. I'd hired a process server to deliver them to Elena at home, along with a detailed evidence packet documenting the affair. Photos, recovered text messages, network logs showing Derek's overnight stays. Everything. I watched from my hotel room through our home security cameras as the server rang the doorbell. Elena answered, accepted the envelope, closed the door. Watched her open it, saw her face go white as she read the first page. She tried calling me immediately. I declined the call. She called again, declined again. Then she called Derek. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could imagine it. The panic, the realization that I knew, that I'd known, that everything that had happened over the past week wasn't coincidence. It was revenge. They both kept calling. I let every call go to voicemail. Read the transcripts later. Elena. He knows. Adrian knows everything. He's filing for divorce. He has evidence. Months of evidence. Derek, what do we do? Derek. Fuck. Do you think he's the one who leaked your story? Who posted that shit about me? Elena. I don't know. It had to be. Who else? Derek. We need to talk to him. Explain. Elena. Explain what? That we've been lying to him for almost a year? That we fucked in his bed while he was working in Tokyo? Derek, Jesus, Elena. Elena, what did you think would happen? That he'd just never find out? Derek, I thought we'd tell him eventually, on our terms. Elena, our terms? Our terms? You wanted to start a business with him. You were planning a future where you got to have both of us. Derek, that's not fair. Elena, what's not fair is that my entire career is destroyed. My sources hate me. My editors don't trust me. I'm probably getting fired. And for what? For you? Derek, for us. You said you loved me. Elena, I'm married, Derek. I have a life with Adrian, or I did, before you ruined it. Derek, I ruined it? You're the one who... The call ended. I imagined her hanging up on him, probably throwing her phone. They called each other 3 more times that day. Each conversation more hostile than the last, exactly as I'd planned. Turn them against each other, make them blame each other, destroy the relationship that had destroyed my marriage. I stayed in my hotel room for another week, monitored the fallout, watched my carefully constructed revenge play out in real time. Derek was fired from Brightline. The blog post had triggered enough client complaints that the firm had no choice. They announced it publicly, parting ways due to irreconcilable differences in professional standards. Career suicide in the consulting world. Elena lost her investigative piece. Her editors killed the story, pulled her from the project. They didn't fire her outright, but they put her on probation, reassigned her to minor stories, the kind of work junior reporters do. Professional humiliation. The divorce proceedings started. My lawyer was aggressive, pushed for everything, the house, majority of shared assets, cited her adultery as grounds. New Jersey law meant she couldn't be completely cut out, but we could make it painful and expensive. Legal fees were piling up on both sides. Through it all, Elena and Derek's relationship disintegrated. They met once at a coffee shop, presumably to talk about strategy or reconciliation. I watched the entire thing through Elena's laptop camera. I'd been monitoring her system for months. She just hadn't known it. The conversation was brutal. "This is your fault," Elena said. "You pushed for this. You said it would be fine." "I didn't force you to do anything. You made your choices. You're the one who kept showing up, who kept calling, who made me feel like what we had was worth destroying my marriage for. And now you regret it." "Of course I regret it. Look at what we've lost." "What you've lost? My career is over, Elena. I can't get another consulting
job. No one will hire me after that post. You think I haven't lost everything? Adrian was my husband, my best friend. He took care of me, supported my work, built a life with me, and I threw it away for... What? Exciting sex with my husband's friend? Jesus Christ. Did you love me? Really? Or was it just convenient? Someone else's wife who couldn't demand commitment? I loved you. I still love you. Then why does this feel like the worst mistake of my life? Derek didn't have an answer for that. They tried to maintain the relationship for another 2 weeks, but without the secrecy, without the thrill of betrayal, there wasn't much holding them together. Derek was unemployed and increasingly bitter. Elena was watching her journalism career implode while dealing with divorce proceedings. They stopped talking by the end of the month. Meanwhile, I prepared for my grand return. I told Elena I'd be in Singapore for 3 weeks. I'd been in a hotel room 3 miles
away for 2.5. On day 18, I checked out of the hotel and actually flew to Singapore. Stayed for 3 days, took some photos, generated some digital proof I'd actually been there, then flew back home. Elena was still living in our house. The lawyers were fighting about who had to leave, but for now, we were both technically residents. I'd arranged to arrive when I knew she'd be at work. The house felt different, cold, every room full of memories that had been poisoned by knowledge. I walked through like a stranger touring a crime scene. My office was exactly as I'd left it. I checked the systems, verified that all my monitoring had worked properly, reviewed the past 3 weeks of data. Elena had spent a lot of time crying in our bedroom. She'd barely eaten, lost weight based on the photos. She'd called her mother 14 times, called her sister 9 times, called Derek 23 times, but most went to voicemail. She'd also tried to trace the leak of her research, hired a digital forensics expert to examine her laptop, but I'd been careful. The access log showed her credentials, her device, her network. There was no evidence of an external intrusion because it had been internal. Me, her husband, using access she'd given me years ago when I set up our home systems. I'd violated her trust in the most fundamental way possible while condemning her for doing the same to me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Elena came home at 6:30 p.m. I was sitting in the living room, waiting. She froze in the doorway when she saw me. Adrian. "Hello, Elena." She looked terrible, exhausted, thin, fragile in a way I'd never seen. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant. This was what I'd wanted, right? To see her suffer the way I'd suffered. But looking at her, I just felt empty. "When did you get back?" she asked. "This afternoon." "I didn't know you were coming today." "I didn't tell you." She set down her bag carefully, stayed near the door, like she might need to run. "I assume you got the divorce papers?" I said. "Yes." "And you know why?" "Yes." "How long?" I asked. "How long were you planning to lie to me?" "Adrian, please." "How long?" She flinched. "I don't know, forever maybe, or until I got up the courage to leave." "Were you going to leave?" I thought about it. Sometimes. For Derek? Maybe. I don't know. It's complicated. It's really not. You were sleeping with my best friend. That's not complicated. That's just betrayal. I know. Do you love him? She hesitated. I thought I did. And now? Now I don't know what I feel about anything. I stood up. She stepped back involuntarily. "I'm not going to hurt you," I said. "Physically, I mean. I'm not violent." "I know. But I am going to destroy you, legally, financially, professionally. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. Your family, your friends, your colleagues. I'm going to take everything we built together and burn it to the ground." "You already have," she whispered. "My career is over. Derek won't speak to me. You've made sure I lost everything." "Good. You leaked my research. You posted that stuff about Derek. You orchestrated all of this while pretending to be in Singapore." "I was in Singapore for 3 days. "You know what I mean." "Yeah, I know what you mean, and you're right. I did all of it." "Why? You could have just divorced me. You didn't have to destroy Derek too." "Yes, I did. Because he wasn't just your affair partner. He was my brother. He was family. And he betrayed that just as much as you betrayed our marriage." "So you decided to play God? To ruin both our lives?" "I decided to make you feel what I felt. The humiliation, the loss, the realization that everything you thought was solid was actually built on lies." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am. I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did it." "Anyway." "Yes." "For almost a year." "Yes." "In our bed, in our house, while I was working to provide the life you claimed to want." "Yes." I could see her breaking. The guilt, the shame, the weight of what she'd done finally crushing her. A month ago, this would have been exactly what I wanted. Now it just made me tired. "I need you to move out," I said. "The house is mine. My lawyer will send over the details." "Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't care. That's not my problem anymore." "Adrian, please, can't we at least talk about this? Try to understand." Understand what? How you accidentally fucked my best friend dozens of times? How you accidentally lied to me every single day? There's nothing to understand, Elena. You made choices, now you live with the consequences. What about you? She asked, voice sharp. You think you're innocent? You violated my privacy, hacked my laptop, destroyed my career. You're no better than me. You're right, I'm not, but I claim to be. I'm just the one who got to write the ending. I left her standing in the living room and went to the office, started packing my equipment. I'd already arranged temporary housing, a corporate apartment downtown, sterile and functional, exactly what I needed. Elena appeared in the doorway. Did you ever love me? She asked. I looked at her, really looked at her. Tried to find the woman I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago, the brilliant journalist who'd challenged me, who'd made me laugh, who'd promised to build a life together. She was still there, somewhere. Under the guilt and the pain and the consequences. But I couldn't reach her anymore. Yeah, I said. I did. That's why this hurts so much. The divorce took 4 months to finalize. It was ugly and expensive and exactly what I'd designed it to be. Elena tried to reconcile a few times, sent emails apologizing, asking if we could talk, suggesting marriage counseling. I ignored every message. She got the counseling requirement added to the divorce proceedings anyway. New Jersey law allowed for it if one party requested. We had to attend 3 sessions with a mediator. They were pointless. We sat in uncomfortable chairs while a therapist tried to facilitate communication between 2 people who had nothing left to say to each other. Elena cried through most of the sessions. I sat there stone-faced, providing minimal responses. Adrian, the therapist said during our final session, do you have any interest in understanding Elena's perspective, in hearing why she made the choices she did? No. That seems to suggest you've already closed yourself off to reconciliation. We're getting divorced. Reconciliation isn't the goal. Then what is the goal? Ending this marriage as efficiently as possible. Elena spoke up, voice small. I understand you're angry. I understand I hurt you. But Adrian, we had 6 good years before this. Doesn't that count for something? It counted, I said. Until you decided it didn't. That's not fair. I never stopped loving you. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but it doesn't erase everything we had. Yes, it does. That's exactly what it does, because now I can't look at any of our memories without wondering if you were thinking about Derek, if you were planning to see him, if you were lying to me. I wasn't always lying. How would I know? How could I ever trust anything you say? She didn't have an answer for that. The therapist tried a few more angles, but it was futile. I'd already decided the outcome, already architected the ending. These sessions were just formalities. On our 3rd and final session, the therapist addressed me directly. Adrian, I want to ask you something, and I want you to really think about your answer. Okay. Do you think the revenge you've taken has made you feel better? I considered that. Thought about the past 4 months, the satisfaction of watching Derek's career crumble, the vindication of seeing Elena's professional reputation destroyed, the sense of control I'd regained by orchestrating their suffering. No, I admitted, but it wasn't about feeling better, it was about justice. Justice or punishment? Both. And now that you've punished them, do you feel like justice has been served? I feel like we're even. They destroyed my trust, my marriage, my friendship. I destroyed their careers and their relationship. Balanced scales. Except you're all still alone, still suffering, still carrying this pain. That's how betrayal works. The therapist sighed. I suppose it is. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in March. I got the house, the majority of our savings, and an agreement that Elena would pay spousal support for 2 years due to the adultery clause. She'd moved in with her sister in Brooklyn. Working freelance now, trying to rebuild her reputation one article at a time, Derek had left the
area entirely, moved to Denver apparently, working some corporate job that was a massive step down from consulting. They weren't in contact as far as I could tell. Their relationship had burned out exactly as I'd predicted. I was living in my corporate apartment, working my regular job, which I'd somehow maintained through everything. My colleagues knew I was going through a divorce, but didn't know the details. I kept my personal life private. At night, I'd sit in my apartment and review the evidence I'd compiled, the timeline of their affair, the documentation of their lies, the systematic destruction I'd engineered. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like emptiness. I'd won. I'd gotten my revenge. I'd made them pay for what they'd done. But I was also completely alone. My marriage was over. My best friend was gone. The entire social circle we'd built together had fractured. Some people sided with me, some with Elena. Most just drifted away from the drama.
I had no one to share dinners with, no one to call when I had a bad day, no one who knew me completely and loved me anyway. I'd burned down my entire life to punish two people, and yes, they'd suffered, but so had I. The therapist had asked if revenge made me feel better. The answer was no, but the real question was, would anything have made me feel better? If I'd just divorced Elena quietly, without destroying her career, would I feel less hollow? If I'd confronted Derek and ended the friendship without ruining his professional reputation, would I feel more at peace? I didn't know. All I knew was that I'd become exactly what I'd always feared, someone who prioritized destruction over healing. Someone who let anger and hurt turn him into something cruel. My career was built on protection, building secure systems, preventing damage. But when it came to my personal life, I'd chosen to be the threat actor, the one who violated trust, who exploited vulnerabilities, who caused maximum destruction. I'd won the war, but lost myself in the process. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I got an email from Derek. Subject line, "I'm sorry." I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. "Adrian, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to ask for your attention after what I did, but I need to say this, even if you never respond. I'm sorry. Not in the vague, meaningless way people apologize when they're caught. I'm sorry in the deep, I destroyed something precious way. I'm sorry in the I hate myself for what I did way. You were my best friend. More than that, you were my brother, and I betrayed you in the worst possible way. I let myself believe that what I felt for Elena was more important than 17 years of friendship. I told myself I was in love, that it justified everything. I was wrong. The affair was selfish and cruel. The lies were cowardly. The way I inserted myself into your marriage while pretending to be your friend was sociopathic. I know you'll never forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I understand what I lost. Not just your friendship, but my own integrity. My sense of who I thought I was. You destroyed my career. You exposed me publicly. You orchestrated the collapse of everything I'd built professionally. And I deserved every bit of it. I'm not angry about it. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm just saying I understand why you did it. And I'm sorry I gave you reason to. I hope you find peace, even if I never do. Derek. I read the email 3 times, felt absolutely nothing. No satisfaction, no forgiveness, no anger. Just nothing. He was sorry. Great. That didn't undo the damage, didn't bring back the friendship, didn't make the betrayal hurt less. But it also didn't make me feel vindicated. His suffering didn't ease mine. His career collapse didn't repair my trust. His apology was just words on a
screen. I closed the email without responding. 2 weeks later, I got a similar message from Elena. Hers was longer, more detailed. She explained how the affair had started, a moment of weakness after an argument we'd had, Derek being there, one thing leading to another. How it had continued out of guilt and confusion and genuine feeling. How she'd convinced herself she could love both of us, could compartmentalize, could keep everyone happy. She talked about losing her career, losing her reputation, losing me. How she'd spent the past year in therapy trying to understand how she'd become someone who could betray the person she loved most. She ended with, "I know you'll never believe this, but I loved you. I still love you. I just also loved him, and I was too cowardly to make a choice. So I lost you both, and I deserve to be alone with that." I read her email once, felt the same nothing I'd felt reading Derek's, deleted both messages and went back to work. A year after.
The divorce? I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Every room reminded me of what I'd lost, or what I'd destroyed, depending on how I was feeling. I sold it at a loss just to get rid of it. Moved to a different city, Boston, ironically. New job, new apartment, new life. Started therapy myself. Figured if I was going to rebuild anything, I needed to understand what had broken inside me, not just the betrayal, though that was part of it, but my response to it, the calculated cruelty, the systematic revenge. My therapist, Dr. Reeves, was direct in a way I appreciated. "You built a career on preventing intrusions," she said during one session. "Then you experienced the ultimate intrusion, someone violating the sanctity of your marriage. Of course you responded with your professional toolkit. You treated their betrayal like a security breach and designed a response protocol. That makes it sound logical. Wasn't it? From your perspective, I guess. But it
Also, I struggled for the word. Evil. What I did was evil. Was it? Or was it just effective? Those aren't mutually exclusive. No, they're not. But I think you're conflating outcome with intent. You didn't set out to be cruel for cruelty's sake. You set out to create consequences for people who hurt you. I destroyed their careers, their relationship, their futures. They destroyed your marriage, your trust, your ability to believe in human connection. So we're all just destroyers, that's the lesson. The lesson is that pain makes people do terrible things. You're not unique in that. What's interesting is how much you're judging yourself for it. Shouldn't I? Maybe, but judgment without understanding is just another kind of punishment, and you've already proven you're very good at punishment. I thought about that, about how much energy I'd put into destroying Derek and Elena, how little I'd put into healing myself. What should I do instead? I asked.
Start by forgiving yourself. Not them, yourself, for being human, for being hurt, for responding imperfectly to an impossible situation. I don't know how to do that. Most people don't. That's why they end up in my office. 2 years after the divorce, I was working at a security firm in Boston, living in a decent apartment in Cambridge, seeing Dr. Reeves twice a month. I'd made a few new friends, nothing deep. I wasn't ready for depth. But people I could grab dinner with, see a movie with, maintain a surface-level connection that didn't require trust. I went on a few dates, nothing serious. I'd tell women I was divorced if they asked. Wouldn't mention the details. Most relationships fizzled after a few weeks. I couldn't seem to get past the surface, couldn't let anyone close enough to hurt me again. Dr. Reeves said that was normal, that trust rebuilds slowly after major betrayal, that I shouldn't rush it. I wasn't rushing anything. One evening, I was working late at the office when I got a call from an unknown number. "Hello? Adrian? It's Derek." I almost hung up, but something made me stay on the line. "What do you want?" "I'm in town, Boston. I was wondering if you'd be willing to meet for coffee." "Why?" Because I've been carrying this for 2 years and I need to say some things to your face, not because I expect forgiveness, just because I need you to hear them. I don't think that's a good idea. I know, but I'm asking anyway. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Thinking Cup on Tremont Street. I'll be there. You can decide if you show up. He hung up before I could respond. I spent the next 24 hours debating with myself, asking Dr. Reeves in an emergency session whether I should go. "What do you want from the meeting?" she asked. "I don't know." "Do you want closure?" I thought I had closure. Closure through revenge, but maybe that's not the same as closure through understanding. What if seeing him just makes everything
worse? Then you leave. You have all the power here, Adrian. You can choose to engage or not engage. Either choice is valid. I showed up at Thinking Cup at 3:15 p.m. Partly because I was curious, partly because some small part of me wanted to see if Derek was as destroyed as I'd hoped. He was sitting at a corner table, looking older than I remembered. Thinner, tired. I sat down across from him without ordering anything. "Thanks for coming," he said. I almost didn't. "I know." We sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. "You wanted to talk?" I said finally. "So talk." Derek took a breath. "I've spent 2 years trying to figure out how to explain what happened, why I did what I did, and the truth is, there's no good explanation. I was selfish. I was a coward. I wanted something I couldn't have, so I took it anyway." "That's it? That's your big revelation?" "No. The revelation is that I don't get to ask for forgiveness. I just get to live with what I did. And I wanted you to know that I am. Living with it every day, the guilt, the shame, the knowledge that I destroyed the most important relationship in my life for, what? A few months of excitement? Elena said it was almost a year. It was, but most of that was just inertia. Guilt too heavy to confront, so we kept going. Made it worse. You could have stopped at any time. "So could you," Derek said quietly. "You could have confronted us, could have ended it cleanly. Instead, you destroyed both of our careers. You deserved it. Maybe. Probably. But Adrian, what you did, that wasn't about justice. That was about proving you could hurt us worse than we hurt you. And I did." "Yeah, you did." "Elena's still freelancing. Can barely support herself. Her reputation in journalism is shot. And me, I'm working in corporate IT, making half what I used to make. No consulting firm will touch me. You made sure of that. Good. Is it? Do you actually feel better, knowing we're suffering?" I wanted to say yes, to claim victory. But looking at Derek's tired face, I realized the truth. No, I don't feel better. I just feel empty. Derek nodded slowly. "Yeah, me too." We sat there in silence, two men who'd once been brothers, now just strangers with shared wounds. "I didn't come here to make you feel bad," Derek said, "or to ask for anything. I needed you to know that what happened destroyed me too, not just professionally, personally. I lost my best friend, I lost respect for myself, I lost the ability to trust my own judgment. That makes 2 of us. 3. Elena's a mess too, apparently. You're still in contact?" "No, but we have mutual friends. I hear things." "She wrote me an email a year ago. I deleted it." "She told me she was going to. I told her you wouldn't respond." "You were right." Derek looked down at his coffee. "I know this doesn't change anything. I know we can't be friends again. I just wanted to look you in the eye."
"And tell you that I'm sorry, that I hate what I did, that if I could undo it, I would. But you can't. No, neither can you." That stung, because he was right. I couldn't undo what I'd done either, couldn't undestroy his career, couldn't unleak Elena's research, couldn't take back the systematic revenge I'd architected. We were both trapped in the consequences of our choices. "Are you happy?" I asked. "In Denver, or wherever you ended up?" "I'm in Seattle now, back where I grew up. And no, I'm not happy, but I'm surviving, working, trying to become someone I don't hate. Good luck with that. You too? He stood up, extended his hand. I looked at it for a long moment, then shook it briefly. Goodbye, Adrian. Goodbye, Derek. I watched him walk out of the coffee shop, felt something loosen slightly in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the beginning of something that could eventually become forgiveness, or maybe just acceptance that we'd both fucked up, both hurt each other, both lost something we'd never get back, and maybe that was enough. 3 years after the divorce, I met someone new. Her name was Rachel. She was a data scientist at MIT, brilliant and funny and completely unaware of my history. We met at a professional conference, started talking about encryption protocols, ended up having dinner. I told her on our third date that I was divorced, told her a sanitized version of the story, that my ex-wife had an affair, that we'd split, that it had been difficult. I didn't tell her about the revenge, didn't mention destroying careers or leaked research or calculated humiliation. Rachel was sympathetic, but not pushy. Divorce is hard. My parents went through one when I was in college. It changes people. Yeah, it does. Are you still angry about it? I thought about that. 3 years of therapy, 3 years of distance, 3 years of trying to rebuild. Not as angry as I was. Mostly just sad. About what? We lost. What I lost. That's healthy, I think. Anger turns to sadness, turns to acceptance. What comes after acceptance? Whatever you build next. We dated for 6 months before I told her the real story. The whole thing, the affair, the surveillance, the systematic revenge. I laid it all out one evening in my apartment, expecting her to be horrified, expecting her to leave. She listened quietly, didn't interrupt. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. That's, she started, then paused. That's really dark, Adrian. I know. You destroyed their lives. Yes. Do you regret it? Sometimes, other times no, it's complicated. She looked at me carefully. Are you that person, the one who would do that to me if I hurt you? I don't know. I'd like to think I've changed, that I've learned something. But honestly, Rachel, I don't trust myself enough to make promises about what I'd do if someone betrayed me again. At least you're honest about it.
That's all I can be. She stood up. I thought she was leaving. Instead, she came over to where I was sitting, took my hand. I appreciate you telling me. That took courage. It was the right thing to do. You should know who you're with. I know who I'm with. A man who got hurt badly and responded in a way he's not proud of. A man who's been working on himself, who's honest about his flaws. You're not horrified. I'm concerned. But I'm also not planning to sleep with your best friend, so I think we're okay. It was such a Rachel thing to say, direct, slightly dark humor, that I actually laughed. We stayed together, built something careful and deliberate. I was honest with her about my trust issues, my paranoia, the ways the betrayal had changed me. She was patient, understanding, but also unwilling to tolerate unreasonable behavior. I get that you're damaged, she said once, when I'd accused her of lying about something trivial. But I'm not Elena. I'm not responsible for her choices. And if you can't separate me from your trauma, we can't do this. She was right. I apologized, went back to therapy, worked harder on not projecting my past onto my present. Slowly, carefully, I started to trust again. Not completely, maybe never completely, but enough. Enough to build something new. 5 years after the divorce, I got a message from Elena. Not an email this time. A handwritten letter forwarded through my lawyer. Adrian, I'm writing this because my therapist suggested it might help with closure. Not for you, for me. So if you're reading this, thank you.
If you threw it away unopened, I understand. I want to tell you about the last 5 years. Not because I think you care, but because I need to acknowledge them to someone who knows the whole story. I lost my job at Bloomberg. You probably knew that. What you might not know is that I spent 2 years unable to get any journalism work. My reputation was destroyed. Sources wouldn't talk. Sources to me. Editors wouldn't hire me. I was toxic. I worked retail for a year. Then I started freelancing. Small pieces, local papers, nothing like the work I used to do. Slowly, very slowly, I've rebuilt. I have a steady gig now at a financial website. It's not Bloomberg. It will never be Bloomberg. But it's work I can be proud of. I haven't spoken to Derek in 4 years. We tried to make it work for a while after everything fell apart, but we were both too damaged, too guilty. We reminded each other of what we'd done. Eventually, we just stopped talking. I'm alone now, by choice mostly. I date occasionally, but I can't seem to let anyone close. The guilt is still there. The knowledge of what I'm capable of. How I could betray someone who loved me, who trusted me, who built a life with me. I understand why you did what you did. I understand the rage, the need for revenge. If someone had done to me what I did to you, I probably would have wanted to destroy them too. But Adrian, I
hope you've found peace. I hope you've found happiness. I hope you've built a life that isn't defined by what I took from you. Because that's what I'm trying to do. Build a life that isn't defined by my worst choices. It's hard. Some days it feels impossible, but I'm trying. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't think I deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I understand what I did, that I carry it with me every day, that I'm sorry in ways I can't adequately express. I hope you're well. Elena. I read the letter sitting at my kitchen table. Rachel was at work. I was alone with Elena's words and my own thoughts. 5 years. We'd both lost 5 years to this, to the affair, the revenge, the aftermath. I thought about responding, telling her I'd moved on, found someone new, built a different life. But what would that accomplish? More pain for her or satisfaction for me? Neither seemed worth it. I folded the letter, put it in a drawer, and never responded, but I kept it as a
reminder, maybe, of what we'd both been capable of. The damage we could do to each other and ourselves. Or maybe just as proof that it had all been real, that we'd loved each other once, before everything turned to ash. 7 years after the divorce, Dr. Reeves asked me a question I wasn't expecting. Do you think you'd do it again? The revenge? I'd been seeing her monthly at that point, down from the weekly sessions of the early years, just check-ins mostly, making sure I wasn't backsliding. No, I said immediately, then reconsidered. Maybe, I don't know. That's an honest answer. The revenge felt justified at the time, like the only response that made sense, but looking back, it didn't solve anything, it just multiplied the suffering. Would anything have solved it? I don't think betrayal is something you solve, it's something you survive. And did you survive? I thought about my life. The relationship with Rachel, now 3 years strong, the career I'd rebuilt in Boston, the friends I'd made, the routines I'd established, the therapy that had helped me understand myself better. Yeah, I survived. More than survived. Maybe, some days. That's progress. Is it though? Because I still don't trust easily. I still monitor Rachel's phone usage more than I should. I still assume people are lying until proven otherwise. That's not progress in healing. That's progress in self-awareness. You know you're doing it. You know it's not healthy. You're working on it. But I'm not fixed. No one's fixed, Adrian. We're all just works in progress. The question is whether you're progressing. I think so, yeah. Then that's enough. I wanted to believe her, wanted to accept that growth wasn't about perfection but about incremental improvement. that I could be damaged and healing at the same time. Some days I believed it, other days I just felt broken. But I kept showing up, to therapy, to my relationship, to my life. Kept trying to be better than my worst impulses. That had to count for something. 10 years after the divorce, I married Rachel. Small wedding. Her family, a few friends, no one from my past life. Derek and Elena existed only as cautionary tales I'd tell when someone asked about my first marriage. It ended badly, I'd say. We both made mistakes. I never mentioned the revenge, never explained how badly I'd hurt them both. That was between me and Dr. Reeves and my own conscience. Rachel knew, of course. She'd seen the darkness in me, had decided to love me anyway, or maybe because of it. She understood that everyone carried damage, that the question wasn't whether you'd been hurt, but how you healed. I'm scared, I told her the night before the wedding. Of what? Fucking this up, becoming that person again. You won't. You don't know that. No, but I trust you to try not to, and I trust myself to leave if you do. It should have been a reassuring conversation, but it
terrified me. The idea that I could lose everything again, that I could hurt someone I loved because I couldn't control my worst instincts. But I said my vows anyway. You promised to love her, to be honest with her, to choose healing over revenge. If I ever felt betrayed, I meant it. Whether I could keep it was another question. 15 years after the divorce, I got an email. Subject line, from Derek. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Adrian, you won't remember this, but today is the anniversary of the day we met. Freshman orientation at Carnegie Mellon, 28 years ago. I think about that day sometimes, about the kid I was, meeting you for the first time. How much I didn't know about who I'd become. If I could go back and tell that kid anything, it would be, don't fuck this up. This friendship is going to be the most important thing in your life. Don't destroy it for something temporary. But I can't go back. None of us can. I'm writing this.
Because my therapist says I need to make amends where possible. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know we'll never be friends again. But I wanted to tell you that I think about you often. Wonder how you're doing. Hope you've found happiness. I'm doing okay. Remarried, actually, have a kid, trying to be a better person than I was. I don't expect a response. I just wanted you to know that the friendship mattered to me, that I'm sorry I destroyed it, that I carry that regret every day. Take care, Derek. I read it twice, then showed it to Rachel. What do you want to do? She asked. I don't know. Do you want to respond? Part of me does. Part of me thinks it's ancient history, and I should leave it alone. What does Dr. Reeves say? We haven't talked in 6 years. I stopped seeing her when things stabilized. Maybe this is worth a conversation. So I called Dr. Reeves, made an appointment, told her about Derek's email. What are you afraid will happen if you respond? She asked. That I'll open a door I worked really hard to close. Or that I won't feel anything. That 15 years later I'm still just numb about the whole thing. Would that be bad? I don't know. Numbness doesn't feel like healing. It just feels like nothing. Maybe nothing is better than pain. Is it, though? We talked for an hour. About forgiveness, about closure, about whether healing required confronting the past or leaving it alone. In the end, she said what she always said. Only you can decide what's right for you. I spent a week thinking about it. Then I replied to Derek's email. Derek, I remember the day we met. I remember a lot of things about our friendship. The good and the bad. I'm glad you're doing well. Glad you have a family. Glad you're trying to be better. I'm doing well too. Remarried. Different career. Different life. I don't think we'll ever be friends again. Too much damage, too much history. But I don't hate you anymore. That took a long time, but I got there. I hope you find peace with what happened. I hope your kid never has to learn these lessons the way we did. Take care, Adrian. I sent it before I could second-guess myself. Derek responded the next day with a simple, "Thank you." And that was it. 15 years of silence, 2 emails and then back to nothing. It felt anticlimactic, but also right. We'd said what needed to be said, acknowledged the past without trying to resurrect it. Maybe that was healing. Not dramatic reconciliation, but quiet acceptance. 20 years after the divorce, I'm sitting in my home office in Seattle. Rachel got a job offer she couldn't refuse, so we moved. Thinking about writing this all down, not for publication, not for anyone but myself, just as a way of processing everything that happened, the affair, the betrayal, the revenge, the aftermath. 20 years, and I still think about it sometimes. Not obsessively, not painfully, but as a fact of my history. The thing that changed me, for better and worse. I'm 60 now. Derek and I would have known each other for 43 years if the friendship had survived, nearly my entire adult life. Instead, we're strangers who share a painful past. Elena and I would have been married for 34 years. Might have had kids, grandkids. Built a life that lasted. Instead, we're divorced people who occasionally wonder about each other but never reach out. And me? I'm a man who learned that revenge doesn't heal wounds, it just creates new ones. That love and trust are fragile. That betrayal doesn't excuse cruelty. I'm also a man who survived all of it, who rebuilt, who found love again, who learned painfully and slowly how to be better than my worst impulses. Dr. Reeves was right about one thing. I'm not fixed. I never will be. I still have trust issues. I still monitor Rachel's behavior more than I should, though I've gotten better at catching myself. I still assume the worst sometimes. But I'm also honest about it. I do the work. I show up for therapy when I need it. I choose every day to be the person I want to be, rather than the person the betrayal tried to make me. That's what 20 years of healing looks like. Not perfection, not forgetting, just progress. Rachel comes into the office, sets a cup of coffee next to me. "What are you working on?" "Just thinking about the past." "The divorce?" "Yeah." "You okay?" "Yeah, I think I am." She kisses the top of my head. "Good, because dinner's ready and I made your favorite." I close my laptop and follow her to the kitchen, to the life we've built together, to the future that isn't defined by my past. The surveillance logs never lied. They showed me exactly what was happening in my marriage, but they couldn't show me what to do about it. That was always my choice. I chose revenge. I chose destruction. I chose to become the person I'd spent my career protecting systems from, and I've spent 20 years learning to live with that choice. Some days are harder than others. Some days I wonder if I should have just walked away, divorced quietly, let them live their lives while I rebuilt mine. Other days I remember the pain, the humiliation, the betrayal, and I think they deserved what they got. The truth is, probably somewhere in between. They hurt me, I hurt them back. We all lost something we'll never recover. And maybe that's just how these stories end. Not with forgiveness or reconciliation or healing, just with survival. 3 people who loved each other once before everything turned to ash. 3 people who learned the hard way that betrayal is a weapon that destroys everyone it touches. 3 people trying, in our own broken ways, to build something better from the ruins. The ending isn't happy, but it's honest. And after everything, that's all I have left to offer.